And okay, it is my pleasure to introduce our second speaker and friend, Bar Leshem. Bar is a third-year PhD candidate in the Department of the Arts at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, under the supervision of Professor Nirit Ben-Aryeh Debi. She is a recipient of the Rotenstreich Scholarship for PhD candidates in the humanities in Israel, and recently won the prestigious Dean's Award for Excellent Student. Her main research area is Renaissance domestic art, and more especially, she studies mythological imagery portrayed on 16th century Italian carved cassoni. Her secondary research area is comic studies, especially the subject of classical reception in the American superhero genre of the 1930s and the 1940s. From the year 2000, she serves as a board member in the Mabatim Journal for Visual Culture, an Israeli journal devoted exclusively to the study of visual culture. Bar is going to talk to us today on From God to Superhero, the reception of Mercury in comics.
Thank you, Ayelet. We'll just, we need to...
Yeah, to upload her.
Yeah.
איפה כל הפרזנטיישן?
ב-PPTS, כאן. הנה. כן. אולי בגלל שאני כאן. תביא, אני אעשה להם בה. Just a second. Okay, this one. Music? Yeah. Okay, but can you see me? Gallery view. Okay. Wow. Yeah. I'm short. Sorry. Okay. Oh, really? Yeah. That's.
Maybe you should speak now.
Yeah, I think because we are here, so you can see me like that, but okay, but you see me here, so I think that they see me at home. So thank you, Ayelet, for the introduction, and thank you all. I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of the papers in the next few days, and thank you to Professor Lisa Morris for everything, and I'm very excited to be here. So I'll start. The Greco-Roman god Hermes, or Mercury, performs a variety of roles. He is the messenger of the gods, the one who leads souls to the underworld, and the god of travel, among other traits. He is known from many ancient literary and artistic sources, and he has developed as a figure throughout the ages. An interesting development occurs when Mercury travels from the ancient world to the modern world of the 20th and 21st centuries. This paper examines Mercury's reception in the medium of modern-day comics, and more specifically in the superhero genre. In so doing, it aims to demonstrate how a myth, or in this case, a mythological figure, was translated to a modern medium in American pop culture as a means of conveying modern ideas and reflecting modern society in an artistic and popular manner. Okay. In Greek mythology and society, Hermes was particularly known for the traits of wisdom, cunning, speed, stealth, and creativity. Regarding his iconography, by the late 6th century BCE, Hermes appears as a young man with a specific set of physical attributes: a winged traveler's hat, a staff, and winged sandals, elements which reoccurs in his visual reception throughout the years. In Roman times, Hermes became Mercury. He retains most of his roles and abilities, but he also undergoes some subtle changes, including taking on a new and interesting role. Emperor Augustus adopts the image of Mercury as a symbol for his reign. Arlene Allen suggests that the emperor associated himself with Mercury as the divine emissary of Jupiter to the Roman people. A new aspect of Mercury seems to arise from this association. He is regarded as the bringer of peace, a role that he later fulfills in the Mercury in the 20th Century comics, which will be presented shortly. Elements from the classical world can be seen in a variety of comic book genres, and especially in the superhero genre that emerged in the 1930s and is still developed and published to this day. The first comic storyline discussed here was initially published in the first and only issue of Red Raven Comics. The issue was published under Timely Publications, the predecessor of the well-known Marvel Comics, and debuted in August 1940. The title, Mercury in the 20th Century, appears in the third chapter of the issue. The narrative presents Jupiter, who sends Mercury to deal with a problem caused by Pluto. The latter ascended to Earth to rule as the dictator of Prusland under the name Rudolf Handler, and to cause chaos on Earth by invading several countries. After approaching Pluto with no luck, Mercury decides to make peace between the countries, and in so doing, he disrupts Pluto's plan to plunge the world into chaos. Eventually, Mercury succeeds, and all is good in the world. Visually, Mercury is featured with his usual attributes, the winged helmet and sandals. He lacks his caduceus, nonetheless, his figure is easy to identify from his usual iconography. Pluto is presented in two forms, as a human figure, which is how he is perceived by humankind, and as his true form, which is only visible to Mercury and the other gods. Pluto's divine appearance resembles that of the Christian devil. He wears red robes and has horns sticking out from his forehead. Although this narrative is not related directly to the superhero genre, it has many of the same characteristics. In particular, a hero who is sent to save humankind from a supervillain. Thus, the Greco-Roman gods have effectively been translated into heroes and villains of the modern world through the popular medium of comics. It is known that comic books and storylines in the superhero genre often refer to real-life events, often of a political nature. As Mark DiPaolo argues, many comic books have taken stands on contemporary controversial issues and have reflected public opinion, for example, by taking a pro-war stance during wartime. DiPaolo presents the example of a Captain America issue published in 1941, which provoked a public debate by depicting Hitler as a comic book supervillain before the US had entered the war. Cord Scott also states that in 1939, as the threat of war in Europe turned into reality, comic books, especially in the superhero genre, incorporated real-life enemies into the storylines. Thus, the visual appearance of many comic books villains resemble that of German soldiers. In a similar vein, in Mercury in the 20th century, the similarity between Pluto's human identity and Germany's dictator in 1940 is uncanny. This comic book storylines falls under a specific type of classical reception, comic books in which the entire narrative is based on Greco-Roman gods. These portrayals usually consist of fictitious storyline, whereby the actions and attributes of the gods have been adapted to suit the modern age. If, in the previous example, we have seen Mercury merely take on the role of a superhero, in the following portrayals, he makes a definitive, explicit entrance into the superhero genre through the world of DC Comics. The first portrayal concerns the Golden Age Flash and his subsequent character development. Jay Garrick's first appearance is in January 1940. He was conceived by writer Gardner Fox and enjoyed stardom until 1949. The Flash is known for his super speed abilities. His costume and appearance are the first connection to our messenger of the gods. The Golden Age Flash wears a red shirt imprinted with a yellow bolt and blue pants. His winged boots and winged helmet match the known iconography of Mercury throughout the ages. In addition to these visual similarities, it seems fitting that the Greco-Roman god, who is often characterized by his immense speed, was the inspiration for the speedster superhero. This representation of Mercury in the comic book medium belongs to another type of classical reception in which superheroes are modeled on specific gods. In the Silver Age of the superhero genre, Barry Allen replaces Garrick as the Flash, and his character is not shaped in the image of the god as his winged helmet and boots disappear. However, Mercury continues to appear in the DC universe, including a later reassociation with the Flash. A rather recent portrayal of Mercury in comic books is in the second issue of the first volume of Earth 2, published in 2012. In this storyline, we enter a world of chaos. Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman are all killed in a war as they try to defend humankind. Mercury appears, trying to help Wonder Woman. He tells her that he is the last remaining god. He mentions the deceased gods Apollo, Neptune, and Vesta. Mercury is depicted in a golden glow, which separates him from the humans and superheroes. He is portrayed naked with his winged cap, his winged snake-embellished caduceus, and wings emerging from his legs. Subsequently, the story jumps to 5 years after the war in which the 3 superheroes were killed. The storyline focuses on Jay Garrick, who is described as an ordinary lad. One evening, he sees something that looks like a shooting star, but it is actually Mercury, who recently escaped from a dark place where he had been incarcerated since his capture 5 years earlier. Mercury introduces himself as the messenger of the gods and the last surviving god from the pantheon. While informing Garrick that he is dying, Mercury grants him the power of speed. Garrick turns into the Flash with a modern winged helmet, winged boots, red shirt with a lightning bolt, and blue pants. In contrast to Mercury in the 20th century, in the case of the Flash, there is no obvious political message or ideology. Nevertheless, in this portrayal, we witness the reception of Mercury on several levels. Firstly, we observe the creation of a modern character in a new genre who is inspired by the ancient god. The first Flash is one of the first superheroes in the superhero genre, and the choice to portray him in a classical manner suggests that the classical world was known and popular in the first half of the 20th century. This is a classical reception of the most straightforward kind. A superhero with the superpower of speed is designed in the image of the Greco-Roman god with the same characteristics. Moreover, this classical portrayal reappears in Earth 2 when Jay Garrick receives his powers from Mercury and assumes the visual attributes of the god. Thus, several decades later, the classical representation of Mercury is still recognizable. Secondly, as was also the case for Mercury in the 20th century, the god is used not only as an inspiration for a character, but also as a means of driving the storyline. In an interview with CBR News, Earth 2 writer James Robinson explains that this parallel universe has a slightly metaphysical feel to it. He further elucidates that he wanted to correct the vague origins of Jay Garrick and instead imbue him with the powers of a dying god. Furthermore, as noted by Robinson, the appearance of Mercury reinforces the association with Greek mythology provided by Wonder Woman. Thus, the god's appearance first reinforces the connection between Wonder Woman and the Greco-Roman pantheon, and second, enriches the concept of the parallel universe, a world in which supernatural elements are allowed to exist. To conclude, this study aimed to explore the way in which an ancient myth has inspired storylines and characters in the modern medium of comic books. The paper focused on the figure of Mercury, the Greco-Roman god, and the way in which he enters the medium, both as a modern adaptation of the god himself and as an inspiration for other figures. In the first portrayal, we saw how the figure of Mercury was used as political propaganda, much like many other comic book superheroes in the 1940s. In Mercury in the 20th century, the implications is that Pluto represents Hitler, while Mercury is the benevolent god who saves the day. This storyline seems to intertwine contemporary events in the real world and classical mythology, thus addressing current issues, but in a fantastical realm. In the second portrayal, Mercury is directly embedded into the superhero genre. In the Golden Age, he influences the design of the Flash, while more recently, the god himself makes an appearance before passing his power to Jay Garrick. Therefore, it appears that the classical world still plays a significant role in the comic book medium by inspiring storylines and enriching dimensions within the superhero genre. This overview enables us to understand and observe the influence of Greco-Roman mythology on the modern world. It elucidates the way in which we are still inspired by the classical world, transferring ancient images and ideas to contemporary media, not only as a means of inspiring pop culture figures, but also to deliver political or ideological messages. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bar, for this for this very interesting survey of Mercury. Do we have any questions for Bar here from the audience or from the chat or from our Zoom participants? Okay. Oh, you have a. You see?
And
Eden?
she clapped her hands.
She clapped.
So.
Okay. Which is also nice. Okay, so.
Know about Mercury?
How
much are we dealing with something like, let's say, Virgil, who takes Homer, he knows every word of Homer, he knows everything and he's translating it into something new. And how much are we dealing with just there's this picture of this fellow with wings over here and wings over there, and based on that they make a riff on their own. Which is are these two different kinds of reception, or is there a continuum between them? What do you think?
This is a great question, so thank you. I think that it is really hard to look at it like. I think that the figure of Mercury has developed throughout the ages, visually and conceptually. I don't know if the writers and the creators of the comic book and the superhero genre read and know every aspect of Mercury, and I think that at the beginning, they were inspired mostly from his visual attributes, maybe something that they learned about, but I don't think that at the beginning we see like creators that read, not that I know of. I hope that this is what you asked more or less. But I think that in the 21st century, there is more depth to the research done when shaping the superhero and re-entering the world of the classical mythology. So I think that I don't think that they invested much time in discovering every thing that was written in ancient Greek and Latin and stuff like that, but it is something that in the popular culture was known. And even if we see the attributes, we also see it in like the visual attributes. We also see it like in the Renaissance. So I think that maybe they were inspired also visually by them. I know that there are other storylines that have a more in-depth connection to the world. So I don't know. I don't think it's the same reception as like someone who read everything and Virgil and Ovid and everything like that. But I think it's a more like development that occurred throughout the ages.
Percy Jackson, that made a difference to everybody. Now,
Yeah.
everybody knows more details.
Yeah, exactly. Percy Jackson, indeed. It's a great way to teach, I think, youth the stories, and yes. So maybe it also helped to shape the how we know and perceive this mythology. So thank you.
Yes. Thanks very much. First of all, the examples you gave are all mistaken. Now in Europe, very influential are the French comics, Francophone French and Belgian. So just to mention two of them, Tintin and Asterix.
Yes.
I can't remember any examples of your mythological characters in those comics. Well, in Asterix, it would have been perfectly natural to expect them.
Yeah.
My first question is, am I right? And the second question is, do you have an explanation, if I'm right?
So yes, you're absolutely right. We have Asterix that we see classical reception in Asterix, no question. But my question, my research is more dedicated to the superhero genre that emerges in the American comic books medium. So I guess that the differences between how Greek mythology and the classical world was translated into comics varies in the context. But in Asterix, we do see classical themes and stuff like that, but I think in a different manner. This paper focuses more on the way that this Greek mythology enters the superhero genre, which is very much American. So I hope that I answered your question.
There's something in American culture which worships superheroes, say, forbidden Europe.
That's an interesting point. The worship of the connection between gods and like, I don't know, celebrities and superheroes, and everything is connected, I think, to the popular culture, to the pop culture of America, of the United States.
Also, one comment, if I may, for your sure. Regarding the American culture and why we have the superhero personality in America. Oh, it's you. Don't want to bore anyone. So another comment for Bar's excellent explanation regarding the American culture and pop culture is that many of the first real superheroes like Superman and Batman and everyone were created by Jews and also experienced the experience of being an outsider, an immigrant, and also this is why we have aliens and gods, for example, who are left alone. They are the only ones, and everyone else is dying. And I think I want to talk about they're giving their powers to the new gods, which is the Americans. The new world is becoming the new creation of the new god, of new mythology, and so they're passing on, I think, the torch from Europe maybe, or from the ancient world to the new world, and from Jews writer who escaped from Europe, etc., to the to America, and then we have all kinds of this mishmash of real and historical adventure and everything. And regarding the Europeans started to imitate the superhero journals of the Americans when the Americans enter, I think, the Silver Age and later of comics, and then the European used to mimic and copy. They outright they copied American superheroes, and until they developed themselves in later years. Of course, Sedman is filled with Neil Gaiman. Sedman is filled with mythology, and we have Mobius and all kind of avant-garde artists. So just a complimentary note to the.
That's a great.
Oh, so I think we need to move on to our next one. So thank you very much, Linda, for this fascinating lecture.
Thank you.